Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. When I approached their table, I froze, watching my wife's jaw drop and her fork clatter to her plate, giving her a startled, unattractive expression. Brad started to get up, but I quickly raised my hand to signal him to stay put. No, Brad, stay where you are. As long as you're sitting, you're safe. But if you stand up, I'll have no choice but to make this very unpleasant for you, I warned. Please just sit down. I don't want to make a scene. Apologizing for interrupting their intimate moment, I felt the tension crackling in the air. Emily, I'm completely shocked to learn that you pretended to be sick so you wouldn't spend the weekend with me. All so you could be with this despicable excuse for a man. In my eyes, Brad really is the lowest of the low. It's hard to believe that you chose him over our special place, where we first met, where I proposed to you, and where we shared so many wonderful memories. This place used to mean so much to me, but now it's lost its magic, just like you. On our wedding day, you made promises that you clearly aren't going to keep. You promised never to intentionally hurt me or do anything that would make me stop loving me. But I'm afraid those promises have already been broken. I am deeply hurt, and I feel that my love for you is fading. It feels like betrayal, Emily. You know me better than anyone else. You know that I approach situations like an engineer. I observe, analyze, identify problems, and look for solutions. In this case, it seems that you want to date other men, as evidenced by your relationship with Brad. I'm your husband, and I don't allow you to date other men. So obviously, the problem is with me. My solution is to fix the problem. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now you're free to date anyone you want. I hope this worthless relationship is worth it, Emily. Turning to Brad, I added, Brad, our business isn't finished yet. I'll be seeing you again. I walked briskly to the exit and went outside. I hurried across Main Street and around the corner to the lobby of the JW Marriott. I watched from afar as Emily hurried out of the Capitol Grill onto the sidewalk, her eyes darting around, searching for me. Despite her best efforts, she couldn't see me. Defeated, she sighed and crossed the street, hailing a taxi that would take her back to our house. I was confused but found some solace in the fact that I had disrupted her plans with Brad and that she cared enough to search for me. She would have been disappointed to find that I wasn't there. I waited a few more minutes to see what Brad would do. Soon he emerged, hailed a taxi, and drove off in the opposite direction. I decided to stay at the JW Marriott for a few days until I figured out what to do with my life. So I went inside and was able to rent a room. You're probably wondering how we got to this point, so I'll tell you everything. My name is Michael Harrison, and my wife, of course, is Emily. When I graduated from Texas A&M University with my electrical engineering degree, I got a job in Dallas at Thompson Engineering Solutions as a building electrical systems designer. It was a pleasure to work for Robert Thompson, the owner of the company and my boss. He was a fair and benevolent leader, which allowed me to quickly move up the career ladder and achieve success in my role. It was at the annual company holiday party that Robert introduced me to Emily, his goddaughter and the daughter of his closest friend. It quickly became clear that Robert had arranged this meeting with the intention of bringing us together. I couldn't help but be grateful to him for that, because as soon as I saw Emily, I was overcome by a feeling of love at first sight. I was completely fascinated by Emily, considering her to be the most amazing woman I had ever met. Her wit, humor, and all the other qualities I could desire in a partner only increased my attraction. It was clear to anyone that I was head over heels in love with her. Our bond was instant and undeniable, and it didn't take long for us to become inseparable. It all started with that party at the Capitol Grill, and it quickly became our special place. 3 months later, during a romantic Saturday evening at the Capitol Grill, I proposed to her. Without hesitation, she rushed into my arms and said yes. Our marriage was a dream come true, and our lives improved every day. We both had successful careers and often celebrated this with dinners at our house. We had been married for 10 years, and everything was perfect until about 6 months ago. I felt that the honeymoon phase was coming to an end. Although I knew this phase didn't last forever, I couldn't help but feel something was amiss. I was absolutely sure that nothing suspicious was going on, but this nagging sense of lost romance was hard to ignore. I decided to take matters into my own hands and started organizing a secret trip for us. My close friend and former college roommate, David Miller, worked in the construction industry with his father Ben, who turned out to be a client of Robert's company. Since I often visited their offices in Houston, I decided to schedule our trip for one of these visits. Our destination was Houston, where we were supposed to meet David, Ben, and their wives Caroline and Gloria for dinner on Friday night. On Saturday morning, we had a quick business meeting, after which we were supposed to go to San Antonio for a couple of days together. I wanted to renew our relationship and have a romantic second honeymoon. Emily seemed to have doubts about going, and I had to convince her of the need to go. Despite her reluctance, I hoped she would enjoy the surprise. On Friday morning, I woke up to find that Emily had disappeared from our bed. I looked for her and found that she was sleeping in the spare bedroom. I asked quietly, "Emily, are you awake?" She stirred and answered, "Michael, I got sick last night and moved into the spare room so I wouldn't bother you. I am very ill and need to rest. Could you call my office and tell them I won't be there today?" I did as she asked and left her to sleep while I went to work. At about 10 a.m., I called her to find out about her condition, and she informed me that she was still not feeling well. "Well," I replied, "I realized that I would have to go to Houston alone." When I got no answer, I broke off the conversation and dialed David's number to inform him about the change of plans. David suggested canceling the trip to Houston since Emily would not be able to come. Instead, both couples could come to Dallas to meet me on Friday evening. Then we could spend Saturday shopping at North Park Center. If Emily felt better, we could have dinner together on Saturday night. I was thrilled with the idea and informed him that I would book a table for them at the JW Marriott and have dinner with them at the Capitol Grill across the street at 6 o'clock in the evening. I immediately canceled my flight, my hotel room in Houston, as well as all arrangements for a car and a hotel in San Antonio. It was disappointing, but sometimes plans change. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I called Emily to see how she was feeling and to ask if she could join us for dinner. Unfortunately, I received a busy signal and was busy preparing a presentation for David and Ben. By 5:30 p.m., I made another attempt to reach her but received a voicemail message. I left a message detailing our plans and then quickly walked out the door to meet the Millers at the Capitol Grill. When we were sitting at the table and enjoying cocktails before the meal, David's expression suddenly changed. He turned to me and said, "Michael, I hate to break the bad news, but you should know that Emily just entered the restaurant with another man. They're sitting behind you on your left, against the wall." With a heavy heart, I slowly turned around in my chair to look at her, and there she was with none other than Brad Wilson. The sight of them together filled me with anger and resentment, emotions that I knew would never go away. In short, he had left my sister Barbara at the altar and later confessed that he did not want to get married. He quickly married another woman and had a child. Despite my belief that she was better off without him, Barbara is still suffering because of his betrayal. That's why I despise and hate him. But let's focus on the present. I was surprised, to put it mildly. I tried to speak, but all I managed was a stutter. The sympathetic expressions on everyone's faces confirmed their shock. Finally finding my voice, I was able to say, "Well, this is quite unexpected, isn't it?" It was clear that I couldn't continue the evening with them, pretending that I hadn't witnessed what we all saw. I invited them to continue their plans and suggested that we meet for breakfast the next morning at 9:30 a.m. in the hotel cafe. "I'm sure I'll feel much better by then. Unfortunately, it's clear that Emily and I won't be able to join you for dinner tomorrow night. I deeply apologize and ask for your forgiveness," I said quietly. I hugged the women and men who were my old friends and headed to the place where my wife was sitting. I noticed that David was following me, reassuring me that everything would be fine, though I knew it wouldn't happen. I appreciated his concern for me. When we returned to that tense conversation at the table, I found myself back in my room at the JW Marriott later that evening. I had turned off my mobile phone at the time of registration but decided it was time to turn it on again. Emily had left a few messages, but like others in my position, I deleted them without listening. Ignoring the last voice message, I let the phone ring and send it to voicemail, not wanting to hear what she had to say. After deleting the message, I turned off the phone again. On Saturday morning, I met with David and Ben to discuss our business relationship. I told them that I was expecting major changes in my life and was not sure what they might entail. I asked them to refrain from signing the new contract sent by Robert. I need to be given time to deal with problems in my marriage and at work. Robert, as you know, is a close friend of Emily's father and her godfather. Perhaps there will be a better opportunity for you in the future if you can wait. If not, we'll reconsider the situation, I explained. David replied, I perfectly understand what you're driving at, but honestly, I don't see anything wrong with you continuing your monthly contacts with Robert until your future becomes more certain. What do you say? We will do as you ask, I said. Robert and I are working together only because of you, and if your circumstances change, we will always be there for you. Just let us know what needs to be done when the time comes. We are ready to support you in any case. Tears welled up in my eyes as I hugged them both tightly. At that moment, the ladies entered the restaurant. It's time for the women to persuade their husbands to go shopping. Caroline, David's wife, grinned mischievously and said, Come on, darling, your credit card is a little cold, and I think it needs to be warmed up a little. Gloria, Ben's wife, added, I hope Ben's card will withstand the heat, because today we will withdraw money from them so often that they may just melt. It's not every day that we manage to shop at North Park Center. Despite my feelings, I couldn't help but laugh at their playful banter and appreciated their efforts to cheer me up. I truly adored them for that. After exchanging hugs, they left. I considered going to the office to get some things in order but hesitated, deciding that Robert might be there on Saturday and Emily might expect me to show up. As a result, I decided not to go and planned to come to the office early on Sunday morning to figure out what needed to be done. I spent the rest of Saturday afternoon immersed in a book I had recently picked up. The next morning, I arrived at the office and dealt with several tasks. Before I left, I developed a plan for what I hoped to do on Monday morning. Back in the hotel room with the Dallas Morning News, I started looking through apartment rental ads, realizing that I couldn't stay at the JW Marriott indefinitely. I started calling and making appointments for Tuesday morning. When everything was ready, I relaxed and started watching football. The next morning, I met with my longtime lawyer, Roger, to discuss the possibility that he would represent me in the divorce case. Roger assured me, God knows, Michael, it won't be difficult for me to represent you. I can't believe you're divorcing Emily. You really love her more than anyone I've ever known. I replied, Roger, the key word here is loved. It's in the past tense because I don't feel that way about her anymore. If you don't want to represent me, that's fine, but please don't represent Emily. Roger agreed, saying that he would prefer not to represent either of us. He suggested that I try to sort things out with Emily, but if that's not possible, then I should hire Jacob Easterman as my lawyer. He thought Jacob would be good at this task. Roger advised me to try to make peace with Emily before making final decisions. I thanked him for his recommendation but made it clear that I had no chance of reconciling with Emily since my feelings for her had changed. Then I met with Jacob, who assured me that all the necessary paperwork would be ready by Tuesday and that Emily would receive the lawsuit on Wednesday. After that, I visited the bank and received the cash receipt for half of our savings, leaving the remaining funds in our joint checking account to cover current expenses until the divorce process was completed. Emily and I had a predetermined financial arrangement. Every month we contributed a fixed amount to cover the total running costs. In addition, each of us contributed a certain amount for food, entertainment, and the purchase of furniture and equipment. Over time, the fund to cover these expenses had grown significantly, as we constantly contributed more than we spent. This fund remained untouched to pay bills during the divorce proceedings. In addition, each of us saved about $500 a month in a separate account to pay for vacations and holidays. After the divorce, I would withdraw my 50% share of the savings account. We had full control over our personal income and could invest and spend it as we saw fit. Our investment accounts were separate, managed by different brokers, and we were unaware of the value of each other's accounts. Similarly, we had separate retirement plans. The only general financial information was the amount deposited monthly into our checking and savings accounts. I took the cash receipt to another local bank and decided to open new accounts for myself. I deposited $25,000 into my checking account and $180,000 into my new savings account. I also took care of additional financial details such as insurance. That done, I went to the office to sort things out. As soon as I entered, Kelly, the secretary, informed me that Robert wanted to see me in his office right away. Well, it started, I thought. He called me inside, saying, "Come in, Michael," and closed the door. After Emily's call, I was left perplexed. What happened? I told him the whole situation, and he asked me what I would do next. I said confidently, "I'm going to file for divorce." After asking his opinion, he replied with a touch of arrogance, insisting that I should reconcile with my wife and not file for divorce if I wanted to stay at work. My choice was obvious: establish a relationship with my wife or face the consequences of being fired from my job. Go figure it out with Emily or consider yourself fired, Robert threatened. I pretended to be shocked and raised an eyebrow before answering, "Robert, do you really think that my value to the company depends only on my personal life with Emily? Aren't my efforts and dedication obvious enough? Didn't I adhere to the company's rules and policies?" Knowing Robert, I recorded our conversation on my phone. "Michael, you are a valuable employee of the company. Your work ethic is impeccable, and you always follow the rules," Robert admitted. "You played a role in the development of the company's policies, so I believe that you adhere to them. But Emily is my goddaughter, and I have to tell you that if you don't solve your problems with her, then I will have to fire you. Do you understand the gravity of the situation now?" I realized that he was trying to put pressure on me, but I decided to turn the situation around and confront him. Although I restrained myself from smiling, inwardly I felt a sense of satisfaction. In a gloomy tone and with a pained expression on my face, I told Robert that he would have to break the news that I was ending my marriage with Emily. Although he looked stunned and disappointed, he eventually made the decision to fire me from my job. I asked him to assign a security guard to accompany me to the office where I intended to pick up my remaining things. Anticipating the situation, I had already taken some things on Sunday. Robert and I had a long working relationship, so I knew him well. Arriving at my now former office, I selected only a few things to pack them in a small box taken from the supply room. As I was about to leave, Robert noticed a photo of Emily and me on our wedding day. She was standing there in her stunning wedding dress, and I couldn't help but feel sad. I have to admit that I didn't look so bad in a tuxedo either. Tears welled up in my eyes when I picked up our photo and whispered, "I've always liked this frame." I carefully removed the back of the frame, put it in the box with my things, and threw the photo into the wastebasket. As I turned to leave, I was greeted by Emily's shocked expression and tears streaming down her face. She clearly noticed how I got rid of the wedding photo and understood the consequences of my actions. In a low voice, she asked, "Michael, can we talk?" I briefly paused my departure and replied, "We have nothing to talk about, Emily. You've already betrayed me or are about to. You broke both the promises you made on our wedding day. You hurt me so deeply that you broke my heart, and you did something that made me stop loving you. As they say, you can't fix a broken heart. What should I do now? Do you really believe that I can forgive you for betraying me?" Do you know how much I despise Brad for what he did to Barbara? And yet you chose to be with him? It's unrealistic to think that our marriage can survive this. No, Emily, there's nothing more to discuss here. I left my workplace and left Emily's life. I called David Miller and informed him that Emily and I were getting divorced and that I had been fired from Thompson Engineering Solutions because of this. I informed him that I was developing an advanced building automation system that would surpass anything Robert currently provides. I explained that I needed a few months to finalize and implement it and asked if he would agree to work with me on a monthly basis until Robert provided their new program. For the past 2 years, Robert has not allowed me to do advanced electrical system design, instead entrusting me with the maintenance of existing systems and solving all issues related to customer service. As a result, I've devoted my personal time to developing building automation technology, and I'm already pretty close to completing the project. If I hadn't been fired, I planned to turn it over to Robert as soon as he could see improvements over his current systems. Now that I'm no longer working there, I'll have the freedom to market it on my own. David noted that he would need to consult with his father before giving a final answer, but he was sure that they were ready to give me a few months to finalize everything. Judging by their assessment, they could implement this into their business. For days later, I was able to move from the hotel to a beautiful apartment. Although the monthly rent was very high, I had the financial reserves to last a few months. After moving, all my days were occupied with writing and testing system code for 10 to 12 hours in a row. Despite knowing that the project would soon be ready to enter the market, I felt obliged to bring it to completion in order to live on it. It was at this time that Emily received the divorce papers and repeatedly contacted me in the hope of talking about it. I've listened to all her voice messages, but I haven't found anything worth discussing with her. In one of the messages, she confessed, "Michael, I have to admit that I might have thought about being with Brad if you hadn't intervened, but I've never acted in that direction. I don't know what I was thinking, but I still love you. Could you give me a call?" She begged. "Michael, I still love you, and I don't want to get divorced. Please call me." She continued, "Michael, can't we find a way to get through this and stay together?" She pleaded, "Michael, I miss you terribly." Feeling that I was tired of everything, I contacted Jacob and asked him to contact Emily's lawyer, warning him that I would seek a restraining order if her behavior did not change. Shortly after that, I received a message from Emily, "Michael, I love you, and I just want to fix everything and spend the rest of my life with you. I'm surprised that you're seeking a restraining order against me, but if that's what you think you need to do, then I'll respect your decision. This will be the last message I'll send you. I love you more than anything in the world, but I understand that the choice is now in your hands. I'm really sorry that I caused you so much pain that you can't even talk to me. My love for you is unshakable, and I am by your side when you are ready to accept a helping hand." As promised, I didn't receive any more messages or calls from her. The result was not what I expected. It was like the last nail in the coffin of our marriage. Even though we had not divorced yet, I was very sad to realize that it had come to this. I spent 3 stressful weeks working on my automation systems, devoting many hours to them every day. On Friday, just after lunch, Jacob called me. He informed me that we had a court hearing scheduled for next Wednesday morning with Judge Patricia Martinez. Jacob expressed his concern, mentioning that Judge Martinez has a reputation for being a tough judge in divorce cases, often subjecting people to thorough processes before granting a divorce, if she gives one at all. Arriving at the courtroom, we found Emily and her lawyer there. Our case was reviewed within a few minutes after we entered the courtroom. After we took our seats, the bailiff called the hall to order. Everyone stood up when Judge Martinez came in and took her seat. Greeting us as we sat down, she turned to me, the applicant in the divorce case, and asked if I wanted to drop the lawsuit and try to save my marriage. I respectfully declined, stating that I wanted to continue the case. Judge Martinez looked slightly disapproving but eventually agreed with my decision. Then she turned to Emily and asked, "Mrs. Harrison, do you agree with the decision to divorce?" Or would you prefer to try to reconcile with your spouse? Without hesitation, Emily said, Your Honor, I don't want a divorce. I love my husband, and I intend to save our marriage. When the judge considered the petition indicating irreconcilable differences as the basis for divorce, it became clear that the settlement agreement proposed by Mr. Harrison was fair and devoid of any malicious intent usually found in such cases. The judge asked if there was a reason for such an unusual lack of hostility in the petition. Your Honor, I bear her no ill will. I have no intention of harming her, and I am fully committed to achieving a just solution. I must admit that I no longer feel the feelings of love for her that I once felt, I explained, causing Emily to choke and let out a small sob. The judge intervened, expressing optimism that with the right support, the couple would be able to resolve their problems and reconcile. As a result, the judge appointed 3 joint sessions of marital counseling with a highly qualified psychotherapist. The court appoints 1 first session, then 3 individual sessions for each party, and 2 joint sessions. The only exception is if the consultant informs the court that the marriage cannot be saved. The judge announced and hit the gavel, announcing the start of the next case. I wanted to object, but Jacob stopped me and advised, Michael, attend the first session and see if you change your mind. If not, tell the counselor clearly that you want to end the marriage and see what happens next. Unfortunately, the consultations turned into a disaster. Emily begged, apologized, and pleaded with me to reconsider the decision to divorce and try to rebuild our marriage. The consultant listened to me carefully, although he did not seem particularly sympathetic to my decision to end my marriage. He asked, Michael, can you explain why you don't want to work on your marriage? I replied, Dr. Graham, let me share a story with you. To some, it may seem like a fairy tale, but it is not fiction. I was at my company's holiday party when I saw a girl across the room. Have you ever experienced love at first sight? Because that's exactly what happened to me. My boss introduced his goddaughter Emily to me, and at that moment, I realized that she was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. The sadness that had been in her eyes just a few minutes ago disappeared, replaced by a beautiful smile that won my heart. It seemed like we were made for each other as our relationship quickly developed into something passionate and intense. 3 months later, I decided to ask her to marry me, and from that moment, our love story began. I believed that we were perfect for each other, but with a sigh, I realized that maybe perfection is just an illusion. Despite this realization, I was determined to continue this journey with Emily by my side. Dr. Graham, for me, it was love at first sight. My feelings didn't develop gradually over time. They were instantaneous. This instant connection should give you some insight into my psychology, don't you think? If love can arise in an instant, then of course it can disappear just as quickly. Emily was dating another man, but I believe her when she says they didn't have an intimate relationship. I suspect that the situation could have escalated if I hadn't intervened. She betrayed our marriage in every sense of the word. Going on a date with another man is a betrayal, no matter how you look at it. And even worse, the man she chose was Brad, the scum of the earth, my sworn enemy. It wasn't just a random man. She knew how much I despised Brad. She knew the whole story about how he offended my sister Barbara, but she decided to be with him anyway. To top it all off, they came to the holiest place in our relationship, the place where we first met, where I got down on one knee and asked her to become my wife. It was a place where we created countless memories together, where I imagined celebrating her first pregnancy and welcoming our first child. But when I saw her sitting with Brad, his hand caressing her face as they raised their glasses in a toast and a smile played on her face, I realized that the love of my life was betraying me to my worst enemy. At that moment, my heart broke apart, and the love I felt for her began to evaporate. As I approached their table, I felt an emptiness growing in my heart. By the time I left the restaurant, that emptiness had consumed all the love for the woman who had once been my everything. All the love we once shared was gone. That's why I can't keep being married to her, doctor. There is no love left, and I refuse to stay in a marriage where there is no love. It may sound cruel, but it's true. I finished my story sadly. Emily's tears touched my heart, but they couldn't change my feelings. I didn't love her anymore, and I needed to end our marriage. Emily, I'm sorry. I don't want to hurt you, but can you understand what I'm getting at? It won't be fair to you if we stay married and I don't love you. Dr. Graham said, our session is coming to an end today, but I think we've discussed everything that needed to be discussed. I am sure that with the help of individual consultations, we will be able to make progress and hopefully restore the relationship. I will recommend to the judge to continue these sessions. At that moment, I was furious. After listening to everything I've just said, there's no way I'm going to continue the consultations. It's ridiculous to think that this marriage has any chance of survival. If you consider it necessary to continue consultations, then do it with Emily and exclude me. I shouted and left the office, annoyed that someone could be so dense. A few days later, I received a letter from the court assigning me 3 individual consultations. After missing the first session, I was taken to court, where Judge Martinez found me in contempt and fined me $500. She warned me that if I missed the next consultation, I would be sent to prison. I told her emphatically that I would no longer attend consultations. True to my word, I missed the next meeting and was immediately taken by a policeman to the Dallas County Jail. What a beautiful place. Not every day a lawyer came to me trying to convince me to attend a consultation, but I stubbornly refused. On the 3rd day, an unexpected visitor appeared. It was my former boss, Robert, who had a short 15-minute visit. He expressed regret about my current situation and admitted that he did not support me when I needed it most. Robert said he had a solution to my problem if only I would give him the opportunity to help me deal with it. If you agree to undergo individual counseling, Judge Martinez will release you from prison. After that, we can meet to discuss ways to resolve your situation. I just ask you not to forget about the possibility of returning to my company in the future, although you do not need to promise this, he offered. For the first time in a long time, I felt optimistic. Robert had always been a good friend and treated me fairly until the situation with Emily arose. I agreed to comply with his request and also committed myself to thinking about returning to work at Thompson Engineering Solutions. The judge scheduled my first individual session for the next day, and I was escorted home by a police officer who waited while I prepared for the meeting. I took a shower, shaved, and got dressed. Then he accompanied me to the session and was present until it ended. The session included a typical psychological study and a survey. I tried to be as accommodating as possible. At the end of the session, Dr. Graham escorted me to the exit and brought the officer up to date. It was noted that Mr. Harrison showed willingness to cooperate and committed to attend the next session scheduled for a week later. Then the officer informed me that I could leave but warned me that if I missed the next meeting, I would end up in front of Judge Martinez again, and it was better to avoid this. The officer stressed the seriousness of Judge Martinez's behavior when angry and advised me not to miss the upcoming meeting. I contacted Robert and arranged to meet him at my apartment the next day. We spent the whole morning discussing his proposed plan, making the necessary preparations, and then moved on to lunch. After the meal, we sat down at the table again to discuss my possible future at Thompson Engineering Solutions. I told Robert that although I had always appreciated him and cherished our friendship, I needed to prioritize my own interests. I reminded him of the time when I got my last promotion and he advised me not to do advanced design work. You once told me that my system maintenance and customer service skills are too valuable to spend on design work, but I have a passion for electrical engineering design, Robert. I am developing an advanced building automation system that surpasses everything currently on the market by 4 generations. I assure you this is a truly innovative development that can revolutionize building management systems in our country. Given all the recent problems with energy efficiency and smart building technology, my new system will make such improvements absolutely possible. Believe me, it will change the situation for the better. I have only a few months left to test my system on real company data. I believe that the system will be ready for implementation in 3 to 4 months. Have you already made an agreement with David about testing? Robert asked. I smiled and replied, Robert, I will never be able to deceive you. Yes, he agreed to try it. He is only doing this because of my friendship with him, and if my system proves successful, he will most likely leave you. Understanding the situation, Robert asked, how do you plan to get around the non-competition clause in your contract? The non-competition clause is invalid because I did not resign and was not fired for a valid reason. You fired me because I didn't want to solve my personal problems at work, so there is no problem with the non-competition clause, I replied. He chuckled and mentioned that he could fabricate problems at work if he wanted to, but quickly added that he hoped I would return to work for him. I chuckled at his remark, which seemed to annoy him. Robert, I said calmly, I recorded our conversation when you fired me. You confirmed that there were no work-related issues and that my dismissal was solely due to problems with Emily. I have evidence of this conversation on tape. Why did you feel the need to record it, Michael? Asked Robert. Because I know about your strong feelings for Emily and suspected that you would do everything possible to prevent me from divorcing her, I replied. Fair enough, Robert said and continued the conversation. I am confident that the new system you have developed will bring great wealth, and I am ready to share this success with you on certain conditions. I am ready to have you return to work for me on a permanent basis while maintaining your current responsibilities for working with clients, but you will no longer be responsible for system maintenance. I will need to hire a manager who will report directly to you, as this is closely related to the new system. I am sure that as soon as I master the new software, I will be delighted with the results. In the future, you plan to devote about 40% of your time to developing the system. Although you will work for me full-time and receive remuneration for creating your current and future systems, you will retain sole ownership of these systems. In exchange, you are ready to grant me an exclusive license to promote and sell your systems with a pre-agreed royalty rate that will be paid to you. I understand, Robert, this may seem bold, but I am sure that when you are convinced of the potential of my work, you will find this agreement beneficial. Together we have the opportunity to achieve great success. I agree to the terms set out in this offer and will instruct our corporate lawyer to complete the transaction. It should be noted that if the agreement does not meet expectations, I reserve the right to terminate our agreement. In this case, I will ask you to change the royalty percentage to a more profitable one, Robert replied. Robert agreed to my terms. Unfortunately, I missed the last consultation, after which I was detained by an officer and taken to court in handcuffs. The officer warned me with a smirk, showing that I had been warned about the consequences of my actions. When Judge Martinez entered the courtroom, I immediately noticed her fiery red complexion, steam practically coming out of her nostrils, and flames in her eyes. It was clear that she was angry. Mr. Harrison, it looks like you've crossed the line again, she announced. I consider you disrespectful to the court, and you are sentenced to 30 days in prison. Emily, who was inexplicably present, suddenly intervened, pleading with the judge. No, Your Honor, please reconsider, she begged. I withdraw my objections to Michael's request for a divorce. Please satisfy his request. When Judge Martinez stated, It's too late, darling. He's going to spend time in jail, period. I couldn't help but feel a surge of anger. Saliva seemed to come out of her mouth when she said those words. Deciding to take matters into my own hands, I stood up and exclaimed, Your Honor, I would like to address the court. The judge gave me a stern look and replied, You have no right to address me directly. You have a lawyer for that. Feeling strong, I turned to Jacob and said firmly, Jacob Easterman, you're fired. From now on, I will represent myself. With renewed confidence, I headed to the bench, ready to defend my point of view. Emily's lawyer also agreed to the request. "What's the matter, Mr. Harrison?" the judge asked. "Your Honor, I would like to request a short meeting in your office to resolve this issue once and for all. I believe that if we hold this meeting, we will be able to come to a solution that will satisfy all interested parties," I said. The judge agreed and said, "Good. The lawyers will meet with me in my office in 10 minutes. I'm taking a short break." When we gathered in the judge's office, I asked that the meeting not be recorded in the minutes. The judge hesitated, but I interrupted her before she could reply. "Your Honor, I have reason to believe that there are issues that neither you nor Emily's lawyer would like to put on public display, so I ask once again that this be done off the record," I suggested. She looked at me for a long time and then nodded, asking the court recorder to leave the room. "Very well, Mr. Harrison. Finish your speech. Let us listen to you," she said. "First of all, Your Honor, I don't want anyone to get hurt during this process. Please believe me. I have reason to believe that there has been a judicial violation here. I don't want you to get hurt and for your career to be ruined," I began. "I also don't want Emily's parents' marriage to break up, and I don't want Emily to be offended by anything. Although I no longer have feelings for her and don't want to be married to her, I also don't want her world to collapse. It is quite obvious that there is evidence of your connection with Emily's father, which means that you should step away from this case. The evidence is indisputable and quite obvious. Although I can present this evidence and testify if necessary, I would prefer to avoid this path. I would prefer to present this information to the Judicial Council, but I hesitate to do so. I don't want to cause any more harm to everyone involved in this. Emily will be deeply hurt, and I'm not sure that your marriage will withstand such a blow. My only intention is to complete the divorce without causing unnecessary pain." I turned to Emily's lawyer, hoping to get his opinion. "What do you think?" I asked. He looked at Judge Martinez and said, "Your Honor, I have always admired your commitment to saving the marriages that can be saved. You were quite tough in some situations. Forgive me for being blunt, but I understood your reasons. If Mr. Harrison's testimony is indeed confirmed, I will be upset to learn that you had an affair and even more disappointed that you did not drop the case. Like him, I wish you no harm. I think you should grant him a divorce." Turning to me, he added, "Mr. Harrison, all I ask is that you sit down with Emily at the negotiating table and listen to what she has to say. You told the consultant that your heart is broken, and I sympathize with this pain. It is important to understand that her heart also hurts. Please give her a few minutes of your time. Your Honor, if you approve the divorce, there is no need to divulge all this outside of this room." When we reconvened in the courtroom, the divorce was approved, and the decision on the division of property was finalized. Each of us kept our investment accounts and received 50% of our savings. It was decided that the current account would cover all bills until the end of the divorce process and after it. Emily would retain ownership of the house, agreeing that she could live in it indefinitely without any obligations. In case of a sale, the net proceeds would be divided equally between us. The judge overturned the original sentence of 30 days in prison and instead imposed a fine of $500, which I immediately paid. It was obvious that Emily needed to maintain her reputation, so I agreed to meet her in person in a room adjacent to the courtroom. Emily apologized once again, expressing confusion about her actions. She assured me that she would seek the advice of a psychologist until she could sort out her behavior. Despite her plea for forgiveness and declaration of love, I no longer had the same feelings for her. I hugged her before I left the room, and I heard her sobs echo down the hall. Over the next 6 weeks, I focused on developing my new building automation system, almost ready to implement it into David and Ben's construction projects. About a week before implementing the system in Houston, Emily called me with news. She had decided to sell the house and received an offer of $450,000. Emily wanted to give me a chance to buy it before accepting the offer. She offered to sell me the house for $400,000 so that I could outbid the other offer. I refused, saying that I did not need the house. I instructed Emily to proceed with the sale and send my share of the proceeds to my lawyer. He would draw up all the necessary documents for the sale and transfer the money to my account. Then I asked her why she was selling the house. She explained that she was leaving the city for a new job and needed to start her life from scratch. She also mentioned that she had found out about her father and the judge and said that although she knew I did not wish harm to anyone, it still hurt her. I wished her good luck at her new job and said goodbye. 2 weeks later, the deal was completed. When I traveled to Houston to implement my building automation system for David and Ben's construction company, I arrived with my software package ready for testing and implementation. David greeted me with warm hugs, expressing his excitement about the new system and his impatience to get to work as soon as possible. He introduced me to the secretary, then said, "And this is our new administrative coordinator." I turned around, and there was Emily. Confused, I looked at David and asked, "What's going on?" He grinned and explained, "Emily is our new administrator. You probably know how talented she is, so I'm sure it won't be difficult for you to implement the new automation package with her help." Although I was caught off guard at first, I informed him that I would need a computer workstation to complete some tasks. For the rest of the day, I would work with Emily to some extent, but my main focus would be on preparing the package for installation and implementation. It was important that the computer had internet access. Having calmed myself down, I must say that the day turned out to be quite pleasant. I've always admired Emily for her wit and intelligence. Emily remained as humorous, beautiful, and funny as ever. It was a pleasant day spent with my former wife and best friend. Emily's efforts to be close to me, communicate with me, and subtly touch me did not go unnoticed. I couldn't help but feel the impact of her actions. I missed her more and more every moment. 5:30 p.m. We said goodbye to each other with heavy hearts, saying, "See you tomorrow." She left. Sitting in my hotel room, I considered my next steps and finally decided to take a bold one. I opened my laptop and accessed the company's computer system using the administrative credentials David had given me for the installation. I managed to get access to the personnel documents and found Emily's address. Then I went to the liquor store, bought a bottle of her favorite wine, and went to her apartment. When the doorman asked about my visit, I confidently stated that I had come to see Emily. I told him I'd come to see Emily Harrison, but she wasn't expecting me, I explained. He tried unsuccessfully to call Emily's apartment, and I assumed she must have gone out to dinner. I asked if I could wait for her, and he directed me to a small waiting area located to the side of the lobby. Soon Emily came in with a man who hugged her and kissed her as they walked to the elevator. The doorman, suddenly realizing my presence, approached them. He spoke to Emily and gestured in my direction as I walked toward them. I heard Emily pleading, "Oh my God. No, please, no, no, no." Well, it started again. "I always seem to be able to interrupt your dates, Emily," I said with a hint of apology. "I'm sorry I showed up uninvited, but of course you're glad I came," I added, handing the man the bottle of wine. "Have a nice evening, you two." As I was leaving, Emily hurried after me, begging, "Michael, please don't go. Please don't go." But I continued on my way. Back at the hotel, I immediately sent Emily an email to her workplace. "Emily, I expressed my surprise to see you in David's office. It quickly dawned on me that you must have quit your job, sold your house, moved to Houston, and joined Ben and David's team to be by my side. It may sound presumptuous, but it seemed to me that you wanted the opportunity to reunite with me and maybe be together again. I suspect Robert may have influenced you by informing you of my location and projects. Although it doesn't shock me, I don't like it when he interferes in my life. Despite this, I was sincerely glad to see you. I must admit I missed our friendship. Today's time spent with you brought back good memories and made me feel satisfied. I didn't want our conversation to end, so I made a spontaneous decision to take a bottle of wine with me to continue our conversation outside the office. I needed time to gather my thoughts before continuing, but I was stunned when I saw you with another man. I felt confused and unsure. It seems contradictory that you were making efforts to rebuild a relationship with me, and at the same time you were already involved in a romantic relationship during your short stay in Houston. This situation leaves me with only two possible explanations. Either you are really not interested in resuming our relationship, or there is something else that I do not know about. Regardless of whether you stick to the idea of being with me or dating other men, I'm getting out of this situation. I doubted my decision to divorce you, but your behavior convinces me that it was the right choice. It pains me to realize that I almost bought into your false concern. It's quite obvious that you only care about yourself. I hope that in the future you find true satisfaction and happiness. Please don't try to resume a relationship with me. You seem to think that I have no place in your life. I wish you all the best, Emily. I also sent another email about installing the building automation system, attaching a file with detailed instructions on how to activate the system. A 2-word password is required to access the file and the automation system. If you remember what I said when I approached your table at the Capitol Grill, it should be easy. The words I spoke to you that day when I discovered your betrayal. The passwords, in fact, were broken promises. These 2 words are necessary to access the automation system. I may have been a little immature, but who cares? Every time you log in, you will remember how you neglected our marriage. I installed the package on the server, and following the instructions, you just need to activate it and set additional access codes and passwords for different users. Everything is described in detail in the instructions. If you have any problems in the future, contact Robert. He will connect you with the team that helped me work on the system, since I will no longer work there. Good luck, Michael. Sometimes men who have ended a relationship with a deceitful spouse can find a younger, more attractive, alluring, intelligent, and insightful partner than the one they left. This new partner may be more inclined to intimacy and remain faithful indefinitely. I thought I had found such a woman in Emily before she betrayed our marriage, but unfortunately, it turned out not to be the case. After leaving Thompson Engineering Solutions, I found myself depressed despite still receiving significant royalties from the licenses for the building automation packages that Robert sold. This money no longer mattered to me. My self-esteem had hit rock bottom, and I was struggling with a lack of self-confidence, which was completely new to me, as I had always been confident in the past. Realizing that I had a problem, I took the necessary steps to seek help. I started going to a psychologist, and after a few sessions, I began to feel like myself again. I continued therapy, though not with Dr. Graham, and gradually felt that I was on the right track again. I started dating, but nothing serious came of it. When my finances got in order and my life improved, I decided to accept everything as it is and not rush to fall in love again. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time, but if you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.